They say Venezuela collapsed because of socialism. They say Nicolás Maduro is just an incompetent dictator who destroyed a once wealthy nation. But according to the U.S. Department of Justice, the truth is darker, much darker. Because while 7 million Venezuelans fled their country, 1 in every 4 people, Maduro didn't just survive. He got richer. His generals got richer. His ministers bought mansions in Dubai. How? Not oil, cocaine. According to intelligence estimates, 300 tons per year, flowing through Venezuelan military bases protected by army generals, transported in government planes, and exported to the United States and Europe through routes allegedly controlled by the state itself. This isn't a cartel that infiltrated a government. According to federal prosecutors, this is a government that became a cartel. And in 2023, the United States put a $50 million bounty on Maduro's head. Not for being a dictator, not for destroying democracy, for narco-terrorism. Because Venezuela, according to drug enforcement agencies, isn't just another failed state. It's a narco-state. A country where the military doesn't fight drug traffickers. Intelligence reports allege they are the drug traffickers. Where ministers don't prosecute cartels, they allegedly run them. Where cocaine isn't smuggled past authorities, according to witnesses, it's escorted by authorities. And while the Venezuelan people starve on $5 a month salaries, U.S. Treasury investigators claim Maduro and his inner circle have built a multi-billion-dollar empire, funded by blood, protected by guns, and ignored by the world. This is the story of how a country allegedly became a cartel. This is history's wealth, where money tells the story of power. Before Nicolás Maduro, there was Hugo Chávez. And before Venezuela allegedly became a cartel, it was something else, a laboratory. When Hugo Chávez took power in 1999, Venezuela was the richest country in South America. It had the largest proven oil reserves on Earth, more than Saudi Arabia, more than Russia, enough oil to make every Venezuelan citizen wealthy for generations. But Chávez had a different vision. He called it the Bolivarian Revolution. A socialist transformation that would free Venezuela from American imperialism and redistribute wealth to the poor. What he actually created, according to later investigations, was a machine designed to centralize power, and eventually, according to U.S. prosecutors, to traffic drugs. Chávez's first move was to put the military in charge of everything, not just defense. Everything: ports, airports, customs, oil refineries, food distribution, banking. By 2005, Venezuelan generals controlled more sectors of the economy than any military in Latin America. Why? Because Chávez didn't trust civilians. He trusted men with guns. And men with guns, he believed, would be loyal. But loyalty has a price, and that price was opportunity. In the early 2000s, Colombia was in the middle of a civil war. The FARC, the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, controlled massive coca-growing regions in the Colombian jungle. They produced hundreds of tons of cocaine every year. But they had a problem: how to get it out of Colombia. The Colombian military, backed by the United States, was cracking down. The Caribbean was heavily patrolled. They needed a new corridor, and according to later evidence, Hugo Chávez gave them one. It started quietly. FARC commanders crossing the Venezuelan border without being stopped. Cocaine shipments moving through Venezuelan territory without interference. Venezuelan military helicopters allegedly providing escorts for drug convoys. At first, Chávez denied everything, but in March 2008, Colombian forces raided a FARC camp and killed Raúl Reyes, one of the FARC's top commanders. They seized his laptop, and what they found was damning. Hundreds of emails between FARC leaders and Venezuelan officials. Discussions about payment, logistics, protection. One email mentioned a meeting between Reyes and Venezuelan intelligence chief Hugo Carvajal. Another discussed a $300 million loan from Chávez to the FARC. Chávez called it propaganda, but the laptop was verified by Interpol. It was real. And Hugo Carvajal, he would later be indicted by U.S. prosecutors as one of the most wanted drug traffickers in the world. By 2008, according to U.S. intelligence assessments, the system was in place. Venezuelan military officers weren't just allowing drug trafficking, they were allegedly organizing it. They called themselves the Cartel de los Soles, the Cartel of the Suns. The name came from the stars on their uniforms. In the Venezuelan military, generals wear insignias shaped like suns. The more suns, the higher the rank. And according to DEA reports, the men with the most suns were the ones running cocaine. But this wasn't a cartel in the traditional sense. According to federal indictments, this was the state itself. Generals allegedly provided logistics. Ministers allegedly provided legal cover. Diplomats allegedly smuggled drugs in diplomatic pouches. The National Guard allegedly secured routes. The Air Force allegedly transported shipments. It wasn't a cartel infiltrating the government. According to prosecutors, it was the government operating as a cartel. When Hugo Chávez died in March 2013, the machine didn't stop. It accelerated. Nicolás Maduro was never supposed to be president. He was a former bus driver, a union organizer, a mid-level politician who rode Chávez's coattails into power. When Chávez died, Maduro was named his successor, not because he was competent, but because he was loyal and controllable. The real power, according to analysts, was held by others. Diosdado Cabello, the head of the National Assembly and the most feared man in Venezuela. Tarek El Aissami, the vice president, who the U.S. Treasury would later designate as a key money launderer. General Vladimir Padrino Lopez, the defense minister who controlled the military. According to U.S. prosecutors, these men didn't just inherit the cartel of the Suns, they expanded it. Because by 2014, Venezuela was collapsing, oil prices were falling, the economy was in freefall, inflation was spiraling out of control. But according to intelligence assessments, Maduro and his generals had a backup plan: cocaine. By 2016, DEA estimates suggested that 200 tons of cocaine per year were passing through Venezuela. By 2020, that number had reportedly grown to 300 tons, 10% of all the cocaine in the world. Maduro didn't destroy Venezuela. According to prosecutors, he transformed it into the largest narco-state in the Western Hemisphere. By 2018, according to federal investigators, the Cartel of the Suns wasn't just trafficking cocaine, it was running an empire. Here's how cocaine allegedly moves through Venezuela, according to DEA reports and witness testimony. The cocaine is produced in Colombia by the FARC and other dissident groups. Coca is grown in the jungle, processed into paste, and refined into powder. But getting it out of Colombia is the hard part, so the drugs cross into Venezuela. And once they're in Venezuela, according to defectors, they're safe, because the Venezuelan military allegedly doesn't stop them. Intelligence reports suggest it escorts them. According to testimony from former military personnel, the cocaine is stored in Venezuelan military bases, not hidden, stored openly. In some cases, witnesses have testified that drugs were kept in the same warehouses as Venezuelan military equipment. His name was Carlos, a former National Guard sergeant. In 2018, he fled Venezuela and crossed into Colombia on foot. When DEA agents debriefed him in Bogotá, he told them something that confirmed their worst suspicions. For 2 years, Carlos had been stationed at La Carlota Air Base in Caracas. His job, officially, was perimeter security. His actual job? Guarding cocaine, 2 tons of it, stacked in a hangar next to spare parts for helicopters. When Carlos asked his commanding officer why they were protecting drugs, the officer didn't get angry. He laughed, and he said, "This is our salary now. The government can't pay us, but the narcos can." Carlos deserted 3 months later. He's now in witness protection, and his testimony became part of the 2020 DOJ indictment against Maduro. According to intelligence reports, the cocaine is moved using military cargo planes, commercial flights operated by state-owned airlines, submarines built in Venezuelan shipyards, and speedboats allegedly escorted by the Venezuelan Coast Guard. In 2015, a military cargo plane left Venezuela and landed in Honduras. It was carrying 800 kilograms of cocaine. The plane belonged to the Venezuelan Air Force. The pilot? A Venezuelan military officer. He wasn't arrested because the Venezuelan government claimed the plane had been stolen. Nobody believed. Nobody, them. The cocaine leaves Venezuela through three main corridors: the Caribbean to Puerto Rico, the Dominican Republic, and into the United States; West Africa to Guinea-Bissau, Sierra Leone, and into Europe, where prices are double; Mexico through Central America to the Sinaloa and Jalisco cartels, then across the U.S. border. According to prosecutors, every step is controlled, every step is protected, and every step generates billions. How much money does the alleged operation make? Conservative estimates put it at $10 billion per year. More aggressive estimates say $15 billion. Venezuela's entire legal economy in 2023 was worth about $50 billion. That means narco-trafficking accounts for 20–30% of all economic activity in Venezuela. But the money doesn't go to the people. According to U.S. Treasury investigations, it goes to Maduro, his generals, and his ministers. And they hide it. They hide it through fake oil contracts. PDVSA signs deals for oil shipments that never happen, and the payments are laundered drug money. They hide it through illegal gold mining in southern Venezuela, where armed gangs use forced labor and export $3 billion worth of gold every year to Turkey, Dubai, and Iran. They hide it through real estate, luxury apartments in Miami, Panama City, and Dubai, purchased in cash through shell companies. In 2019, the U.S. Treasury froze $30 million worth of properties in Florida linked to Tarek El-Aissami. Penthouses, yachts, private jets, all allegedly bought with drug money. Her name was Maria. In 2019, armed men arrived at her village in southern Venezuela. They weren't police, they weren't military. They called themselves Los Muchachos, the boys. And they told Maria's husband he had two choices: work in the gold mine or die. For 8 months, Maria's husband dug in tunnels without ventilation, without safety equipment, without pay. The gold went to a processing facility run by a front company. That company had a contract with the Venezuelan Ministry of Mining. Maria's husband was paid in food vouchers, worth about $2 a week. In March 2020, the tunnel collapsed. 14 men died. Maria's husband was one of them. The company blamed unsafe practices by the workers. No investigation was ever opened. And the gold? It was exported to Dubai the following week. According to prosecutors, Maduro isn't the mastermind. He's the face, but he benefits from the system, and he protects it. In 2020, the U.S. offered $15 million for his capture. In 2023, that was increased to $50 million, the highest bounty ever placed on a foreign leader. If Maduro is the figurehead, Diosdado Cabello is the real power. He controls the National Assembly, Venezuelan intelligence services, and large portions of the military. In leaked recordings from 2015, Cabello can allegedly be heard discussing cocaine shipments and payoffs. Intelligence officials consider him one of the most dangerous men in the Western Hemisphere. Venezuela's former vice president. In 2017, the Treasury designated him under the Kingpin Act, accusing him of facilitating cocaine shipments and laundering more than $3 billion. A Colombian businessman who allegedly launders the money. He sets up shell companies. He negotiates with foreign banks. He buys properties to hide the profits. In 2023, he was extradited to the United States. If he testifies, prosecutors believe he could expose the entire operation. While the alleged Cartel of the Suns makes billions, the Venezuelan people are dying. Mansions in Caracas, penthouses in Dubai, private jets, yachts worth tens of millions. In 2019, Vice President Delcy Rodriguez was photographed carrying a Hermes Birkin handbag. The bag costs $50,000, more than most Venezuelans earn in 50 years. Average monthly salary, $5, $10. 96% of the population lives below the poverty line. Hospitals have no medicine, no electricity, no running water. Children dying from preventable diseases. In 2019, 300,000 Venezuelans were at risk of starvation. 7 million have fled the country, the largest refugee crisis in Latin American history. And the men allegedly responsible? They're eating steak in Dubai. On March 26, 2020, the United States did something unprecedented. It indicted a sitting head of state. The U.S. Department of Justice announced charges against Nicolás Maduro and 14 high-ranking Venezuelan officials. The charges included narco-terrorism conspiracy, conspiracy to import cocaine into the United States, possession of machine guns and destructive devices. The indictment accused Maduro of leading a criminal organization called the Cartel of the Suns. It detailed decades of alleged collaboration with the FARC. It named specific cocaine shipments. It included testimony from former Venezuelan military officers, and it offered a reward, $15 million for information leading to Maduro's arrest. That reward was later increased to $50 million more than the U.S. offered for Osama bin Laden. Why $50 million? Why is Maduro worth more than the world's most wanted terrorists? Because, according to U.S. officials, he doesn't just traffic drugs. He controls a country with an army, an air force, a navy, diplomatic immunity, and alliances with Russia, Iran, China, and Cuba. Pablo Escobar was a drug lord. El Chapo was a cartel boss. But Maduro has the resources of an entire nation. He can allegedly move cocaine in military planes. He can allegedly launder money through state banks. He can provide safe haven to terrorists. That's why he's worth $50 million. According to U.S. intelligence assessments, Maduro isn't just a drug trafficker. He's a proxy. Hezbollah, the Lebanese militant group, has alleged ties to Venezuela. Tarek el-Aissami allegedly facilitated the movement of Hezbollah operatives into Venezuela. Why? Because Venezuela offers something Hezbollah desperately needs: access to money laundering networks. According to DEA reports, Hezbollah uses cocaine profits to fund operations in the Middle East. The drugs are trafficked through Venezuela. The money is laundered through Venezuelan banks. And the proceeds fund terrorism. Venezuela and Iran have been allies for decades. Iran provides military equipment to Venezuela, including drones and missiles. And Venezuela allegedly provides Iran with a base in the Western Hemisphere. Direct flights between Caracas and Tehran run regularly. Nobody knows what's on those planes, but U.S. intelligence suspects weapons, cash, and gold. Russia has a military presence in Venezuela. In 2018, 2 Russian nuclear-capable bombers landed in Caracas. It was a message to the United States: touch Venezuela, and you risk war. Russia has loaned Venezuela billions of dollars. In exchange, Russia gets access to Venezuelan oil and gold, and a geopolitical foothold 1,500 miles from Florida. China has invested over $60 billion in Venezuela since 2007. In exchange, China gets access to oil and leverage at the United Nations. Maduro isn't just a drug lord, he's a chess piece in a game between superpowers. The United States has considered military intervention multiple times. In 2019, President Trump said publicly, "We have many options for Venezuela, including a possible military option." The Pentagon drew up plans. U.S. Special Forces trained for a potential operation, but it didn't happen because Russia made it clear an invasion of Venezuela would be considered an act of war, and China agreed, so the U.S. backed down, for now. Maduro doesn't just allegedly steal, he silences. Anyone who speaks out is arrested, tortured, disappeared. The tool he uses is called the SEBIN, the Bolivarian National Intelligence Service. According to Human Rights Watch, SEBIN operates secret prisons across Venezuela. Prisoners are held without trial, beaten, shocked with electricity, starved. Over 500 cases of torture were documented between 2017 and 2023. Between 2018 and 2024, over 150 journalists have been arrested, exiled, or killed. If you criticize Maduro, you disappear. Maduro lives in fear. He no longer appears in public without warning. He travels in armored convoys. He sleeps in a secret bunker beneath the presidential palace. The bunker is protected by Cuban intelligence agents, not Venezuelans. Because Maduro doesn't trust his own military, he knows that the moment he stops paying them, they could turn on him. Every general is one bad day away from launching a coup, and Maduro is constantly buying loyalty with cocaine money. Venezuela isn't just collapsing. According to analysts, it's being looted. Let's talk numbers. 7 million refugees. That's 23% of Venezuela's population, the largest refugee crisis in Latin American history. 96% poverty rate. Almost the entire country lives below the poverty line. Inflation of 1,000%. In 2018, a loaf of bread that cost 1 bolivar in 2012 cost 1 million bolivars. Salaries became worthless overnight. Child mortality increased 300%. Life expectancy dropped 6 years. 7 million Venezuelans have left the country. They've walked across deserts. They've crossed rivers with their children on their backs. They've risked their lives in overcrowded boats. In 2019, a boat carrying Venezuelan refugees capsized off the coast of Trinidad. 15 people drowned. Among them were 6 children. The youngest was 3 years old. The survivors said they were fleeing because they had no food. And Maduro? He called them traitors. While the people starve, the elite feasts. It's estimated that Maduro and his inner circle have stolen between 100 billion and 300 billion since 2013. That money could have fed every Venezuelan for a decade, rebuilt the healthcare system, provided clean water to every home. Instead, according to investigations, it bought mansions in Dubai, private jets, offshore accounts, and yachts. In 2022, Spanish authorities seized a superyacht worth $50 million allegedly linked to Maduro's network. The yacht had a helipad, a movie theater, and a spa. It was bigger than most Venezuelan hospitals. What happens next? The most likely scenario. Maduro's generals are loyal because he pays them. But if the money stops, if sanctions choke off the drug routes, the generals will turn. And when they do, Maduro will be arrested or killed. If Maduro miscalculates, if Venezuelan drugs trigger a mass overdose event, or if Hezbollah uses Venezuela as a base for an attack, the U.S. could authorize military intervention, a rapid decapitation strike, special forces, airstrikes, regime change. But the consequences would be unpredictable. The worst scenario, Venezuela becomes a permanent failed state, like Somalia, like Haiti. Maduro dies in power, old, paranoid, hidden in his bunker. His successors fight over the scraps. The drug trafficking continues, and the world moves on. Venezuela isn't unique. It's a template for Nicaragua, for Cuba, for any country where power becomes concentrated in the hands of those willing to use violence for profit. Modern dictatorships aren't ideological. They're corporate. They don't care about socialism or capitalism. They care about money. And when a government realizes it can allegedly make more money from cocaine than from governing, it stops being a government. According to prosecutors, it becomes a cartel with an army and diplomatic immunity. And that's far more dangerous than any drug lord could ever be. In the end, Nicolás Maduro is not the problem. He's a symptom. The problem is a system that allegedly allows an entire country to be hijacked by criminals and turned into a narcotics export business while the world watches. A system where stealing $200 billion gets you a palace, where allegedly torturing dissidents gets you promoted, where starving your people gets you re-elected, because you control the ballot boxes with guns. Venezuela had everything: oil, talent, potential, and it was destroyed. Not by socialism, not by capitalism, by greed. $10 billion a year in alleged cocaine profits. That money could rebuild the country, feed the hungry, heal the sick. Instead, investigators allege it buys yachts. And while Maduro hides in his bunker, surrounded by Cuban bodyguards, eating imported food and sleeping on silk sheets, 7 million Venezuelans are scattered across the world, living in tents, working for pennies, dreaming of a home they'll never see again. And the elite, they're counting their money. Because in the end, they won. The people lost, and nobody stopped them. Subscribe to History's Wealth, where we expose the systems that allegedly let dictators become drug lords, and where we never forget the millions who paid the price. Because in the end, history doesn't repeat itself. It teaches, and those who listen survive.